Hello, I'm Terrydavidmulligan, and my radio show is Mulligan Stew on the CKUA radio network. The podcast is Mulligan Stew Podcast, but the YouTube channel right here is called Terry David Mulligan, strangely enough. I don't know how it worked. That's just the way it worked out. Our guest for almost an hour is Dan Mangan. Dan Mangan is one of the best singer-songwriters in a world of singer-songwriters. He's found his audience in his own manner. When the label wasn't so supportive, he went and built his audience through Substack, through texts all over the world. He's released his 7th album, and it's called Natural Light. And it started in a cabin, a cottage in Ontario, I think. He and his touring band went there to demo songs for a new album called Natural Light. The first song about raining, It May Be Raining, was a very personal song, a message to his kids about the future that they were coming into. And it turned out so well, the recording in the cottage. They all looked at each other and said, let's go, let's do this. And they did it. They were just demoing songs. But as it turned out, they liked that far better than any studio they could ever find. And so that's the album you get, Natural Light, recorded in a cottage by the touring band of Dan Mangan, and co-writing along the way, co-producing along the way. And it's fantastic. It's really the best one. And he warned me a year ago, he said, this is the best I've ever done. And so he's going to be touring later on. He's got a lot of work to get done right now. So Dan Mangan, who called his own shots, created his own persona, his dream, and is seeing it through. By the way, when they tour, the band are going to set the stage as though it were the cottage with couches and throw pillows and whatever. So, and they're going to do the entire album front to back, complete, first half of their show. Anyway, Dan Mangan on the Mulligan Stew podcast, the YouTube version.
I mean, you're talking about when a new album comes out, this is your day. This is your damn day, man. And I am honored to be part of that day, even if it's just a sliver of time. I've been living with this music since you said it to me, and I love anyway, let me just get at it. Dan Mangan, new album, 7th, called Natural Light, which is what I'm shooting in. And it's about to rain.
It might be raining. You know, it's funny, as I realized with this record, it's called Natural Light, which means that, you know, as I try and market it to people, everyone needs a dose of natural light. Natural light is good for you. There's so many puns there, so many ways to work it. And then also, since I wrote the song, It Might Be Raining, I have heard so many people say, well, you know, it might be raining. And I realized that, you know, maybe there's some, I don't know, inadvertent subliminal marking, you know, if I can create reminders to the record, everyone has to, I should listen to that record again. I said those words.
If I see a rain slicker beside the Frisbee, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, a couple of things. I think I'd like to get right to it, if it's okay with you.
Sure.
You wrote me, actually, I did a screen save when it came in, and I just looked it up again. Hold on a second. And the photos, here we go. And it's about, just got this final master. You sent me the music a while ago. We mostly meant to mess around with some gear or write some songs at this cabinet. Unexpectedly made this 13 songs in 6 days. How unexpectedly was it?
It was pretty unexpected. I had studio time booked in LA later on last summer with some, you know, American producer folk. But we went to Jason's cabin. This was the first summer he's had it, so last year. So we were kind of like opening up the cabin for the season kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of black flies there. But we went up, you know, it was just the band. We've been playing together since 2018, but we'd never worked in the studio together. I'd, been making records in the States with American musicians and American producers, and then, touring with these guys. But we went there and we were just sort of like, well, let's hang out for a week. Let's get away. Nice little vacation. Like every time we hang out, we're on tour. I don't live in the same city as them. Why don't we just go and hang out like friends do?
Okay.
But we'll bring some instruments. We'll play music. We'll make music, and we'll bring some microphones in case, we want to cut some demos or whatever.
And you had bits and pieces of songs?
I had 12 songs or 13 songs up my sleeve.
Complete?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, the thing is, like, I used to demo stuff really extravagantly. I'd sit with the song and I'd figure out every little nuance and all the little melodies and hooks that were going to come and go. And I stopped doing that a couple of years ago. So, I just have basically a folder of voice memos now. Once I've written a song, it's just guitar and vocal, on my dining room table, make a quick little recording, and then just leave it at that. So that when it comes to the studio, it's an open book, and you don't know where you're going to go. And, it's not the right, open book isn't the right term, but you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's sort of like, I don't want to preemptively decide what the creative direction is until I'm in the place to capture it.
Oh,
And
we're talking about creative freedom.
totally. And having vague targets, like I've learned a long time ago that if I have a really specific target of what I want something to be, I'll never hit it.
Yeah.
And it will always, other people might be like, oh, I love that song, but to me, it will always feel like a failed attempt. Whereas if you leave it really, really vague with your target and then you end up somewhere you never expected, somebody else might be like, oh, that song's not for me. But I will be like, no, that song's amazing. You have no idea. Because for me, it's connected to the experience of making it. And so it helps me to not need or seek the external affirmation if I can make sure that the experience of creating it is as fulfilling as possible.
I promise not to geek out on this thing. Here's the thing. Thank you, Dan. Because it's the first song, Raining,
Mhm.
was it the first song recorded? And if it was first
Totally.
song recorded, what happened in what happened in that moment?
It was the catalyst. It really was. Like I had just written that song a couple days before going up to the cabin, and we set up some mics when we got there. And we're messing with gear and stuff, and I was like, oh, I got this new song I'm gonna play for you guys, and I kind of showed them the song, and they were like, well, let's just have it. Let's just do it. And so we did honestly like 3 takes maybe, and like, normally when you're recording a song,
Yeah,
like, best case scenario, 5, 6 takes, worst case scenario, 25 takes kind of thing. And it was like 3 takes, boom, we're all looking at each other, lightning struck. We're like, that's it. That's the magic, that we don't need to, that song is done. We added shakers and we added
yeah.
strings and we added some stuff, but like the bulk of it, the base of what it was, we'd found the song is what I'm trying to say. We'd found what it was. And sorry, I'm going to turn off my notifications here so we don't get any more dings. I just, it was a remarkable thing to surprise ourselves. And then the next morning, we spent maybe an hour or two messing around with like a new song kind of thing. And it just wasn't coming very easily. And I was like, guys, I got like 12 more songs. Do you want to just like check it out, see what happens? And it was like, boom, the second day we recorded 2 songs, third day, 3 songs, fourth day, 4 songs in one day. It was fast. It was just like utter flow state. We were cooking for each other, swimming in the lake. And it's a cliche, the cabin record at this point, like ever since Bon Iver, basically, the cabin cliche record is kind of done, but I've never felt so free, in a creative sense. I just had no fear. I wasn't worried about capturing anything. Nobody was expecting us, like the label wasn't expecting us to come out of this with an album. Nobody was. It was just sort of like this fun thing, and there was very little connectivity up there. It was hard to get internet, especially on my service, and so we were just like isolated, alone in the woods. We didn't leave the cabin once. We bought enough groceries to last us a whole week, and we were just hibernating in there. And Jason Haberman engineered the whole thing. He ended up mixing the whole thing. Don Kerr on drums. Mike O'Brien on guitar, Jason played bass. And so it's like there's no other producers or engineers there. It's just the four of us. We all have a producer credit on this record.
And what's really good, I've noticed that what's really good is those are the same musicians you're going out on the road with.
Yeah, for
You
the first
can
time
take that
for me,
experience
you know.
out.
And that's so we did an album release show last night here in town to some contest winners, tiny little room. And it was, we've been rehearsing the last couple of days. We haven't played these songs in, for a year. It's been a moment, and and it was remarkable to play the songs with the people who recorded them because they're not learning what happened in the studio. They just are what happened in the studio.
Do you think the audiences will affect how the songs start to take shape over the course of playing them over and over and over again? Can they remain in the room, in the cabin, or what?
Yeah, I mean, like we're gonna dress the stage like a little cottage. We're gonna get some like granny Afghans, and we've got some ideas of how to do it. I mean, we want to bring the cabin to the stage basically as best we can. And what's cool is I think on this tour this fall we're gonna play the record front to back, which is a very daring move because usually you put out a record you're so excited about it, you play it front to back, people placate you through that first hour of music and they're like, okay, but really we came to hear the songs we already know. And so you're kind of daring your audience to turn away. But in this case, we have 5 months between now and the shows. So there's, I feel like there's some time there for people to learn this music. And I woke up this morning, my phone was blown up with people who had spent time with it this morning. The kind of notes that I'm getting, people saying, my God, I've been listening for 20 years. This is the best you've ever done. I've only listened once and I know that this is going to be my favorite record of the year. Like the kind of hyperbole and just joy that people are responding to this record with is something I've never experienced. And so the experience of making it was so powerful and special that this whole time I've been preparing myself
Yes.
for the fact that I don't know if people will like it or not, but I can lean into the fact that I like it and I had a great time.
Yeah.
And so I'm at 42 years old, I am reveling in just pure, utter gratitude that this can still happen, that this kind of special, magical, kismet, creative flow and that it can resonate with people. I've had my moments in my career where I'm like, should I just go get a real job, And this it feels right now like there's a lot of hope in the air. And the message of the record is, is basically everything is screwed. We're screwed. Everything's, we're toast. But I love you, and there's hope and there's light still. And so I think that obviously that sentiment is probably a sentiment that many people could benefit from hearing,
Dan, in other hands, there would be rage in there.
Yeah.
There would.
Yeah.
But you find your weight in your words.
Mm.
And actually the space between notes and the space between words speaks to me as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of instrumental moments on this record, things that
Little
kind of
45-second things.
yeah, things that came together. There's interludes. Honestly, it was 1,000 happy accidents in a row. I didn't talk. So Mike's playing guitar. I didn't talk to him really about hooks. We didn't talk about guitar melodies.
Fantastic.
And it was just honestly, that's the power of playing music with people who are this experienced and this talented. Is that he just picks up the guitar and out of him comes a Beatles-esque melody, and so a song like Diminishing Returns or Cut the Brakes that have these really familiar resonant guitar hooks in them, but we didn't talk about that. It wasn't planned. That was the first thing that came to him when we pressed record. And honestly, we did 2, 3, 4 takes of these songs. That was it. And everything was recorded live off the floor. Sometimes we weren't even wearing headphones.
Inflation of panic, inflation of outrage. Every comment or like is worth less and less. The disaster looming feels real, but not quite as real as the afternoon light reflecting from the skin of my naked wife.
Yeah. Let me tell you, it's great. It's great. that song "Afternoon Delight" it comes to mind. But yeah, I mean, that song is there's a lot of humor on this record. It's like there's there's so many moments where it's like I just refuse to take myself too seriously at this point in my life.
I hated love songs.
Hmm.
Okay. Love that.
Thank
Love it.
you. I stole a line in there. So we were at a wedding. I was asked to play a Damien Jurado song at our friend's wedding. Mike Castle and Lauren Lapkus, they're actors in Los Angeles, and they're both professional comedians. They're both utterly hilarious. And Mike brought the house down with this line. He's going on and on about how he loves Lauren and how he's, when he met her, he thought it would be cool if he could spend 5 minutes with her. The idea of spending a whole life with her is just oh so overwhelming. And he's effusive, and he caps it all off and he says, "And in relative terms, I hate everybody else." And it just brought the house down. It was like a laugh, cry. Everyone's crying, everyone's laughing. Oh my God, what a special moment! So he's got a few points on the writing credit of that song, but I stole it. In relative terms, I hate everyone else.
As I'm forced to do, Dan, I have to ask you just a quick comments on a couple of tracks, simply because there's 13 of them. We can't do them all, and I will play them all
Thank you. Please do.
over the course of the next year. Melody. It's secretly about the music industry.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you get the benefit of the doubt and sometimes you don't, and I experienced getting the benefit of the doubt. I probably took it for granted.
There you go. It's your line. I have felt what it feels like to be chosen and then unchosen.
Hmm.
But today, this particular day, the day the album comes out, has your doubt vanished?
Well, I've had two careers, Terry. Like I had 1.0, which was my youth, and then I had kids, and then I felt an incredible lull. It was like all of a sudden, okay, can we get back to doing festivals? Nope, nobody wants you. Can we do another lap of touring? I need some money. Nope. The promoters don't have confidence in you right now. Can you make another radio song or something? It's like I felt this. I felt the lull of like a lack that I am lacking, that I am not doing enough, or I am not enough. I'm not the right thing. I'm not cool. I'm no longer in the weight of the zeitgeist that accepted me the first time around. And then I've experienced having to earn that trust from the industry a second time. And so I'm in career 2.0. I feel like 2.0 started with More or Less, and so this is kind of like the third album of 2.0. And I feel like I've caught my stride in 2.0 in a way that feels it feels great. And honestly, I have, I kind of swore to myself I wasn't going to take it for granted again, and I swore to myself that I was not going to allow anyone else to own the relationship to the listeners to the extent that is possible. So that's why I dug so deeply into newsletter stuff and so deeply into text messaging. I've got 12,000 people that I can text message at any time. And that's because I feel like when you don't own that relationship, if the zeitgeist chooses you, that's great. And if the zeitgeist doesn't choose you, if the machine doesn't choose you, then what do? You're at and whereas if I can reach people directly, then maybe there's hope I can do this for a long time.
Does that change what you ask of yourself?
I mean, a lot of it is personal philosophy, but gratitude, like every time you go into the dressing room and there's like a fruit plate there or something, like someone had to go buy that, somebody had to cut that fruit, like,
All right.
just to never take it for granted that people are hiring babysitters or whatever to come to your show, and they're making a night of it. I just played in Florida, never been to Florida, and I presume nobody would come to these shows every day in small venues, but they were packed. And I would go to the merch table after the show, and people were like, "Oh, I flew in from Texas. I flew in from Costa Rica. I flew in from, Atlanta. I drove from Atlanta, Georgia." Like people were coming, and it's unbelievable. obviously when you're young and you're air guitaring on the couch to Aerosmith or whatever, you're picturing the stadiums, but like that's a that's a fantasy. That's a myth, like the amount of people that get to do that. And to be honest, at this stage of my life, I don't, that's not really the career I desire is, a scale like that. It feels like too much pressure and a lack of intimacy. And if I could do like Vogue size rooms like that, like,
Exactly.
1,200, 1,300 capacity all over the world, that would be a perfect career for me. That I would feel like I had achieved everything I ever wanted to achieve. But just to stay in the bewilderment of how lucky and crazy that is that I can write a song and people will tattoo those words on their body, or I can write a song and they'll intricately watch the guitar tutorial to like understand how to play it so that they can play it, like record a cover or play it for their kids or something like that. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. And I think that there are mechanisms once everything's sort of working in your favor in this industry, you start to feel like that's just how it's supposed to be. And I think that, just like your family or just like your job or just like anything, like it can be taken from you. You can get hit by a car, someone else can get hit by a car. And so to just stay in the bewilderment of the gratitude for what is happening helps me mentally from, scraping the bottom too intensely. And it keeps me in just finding joy in making music still.
Well said. Well said. It's and it's not for everyone. What you do,
No,
it's
as Torkel Campbell has said, if this was easy, everybody would do it.
yeah,
It really is the best job in the world. It honestly is. It is so hard to constantly remind the world that you exist all the time and find new ways to do it. And then on top of that, try and better your art constantly and better your performance and keep the business running when touring is, getting absolutely absurdly expensive to do. And you want to pay, your band well, and you want to pay techs well, and you want to make sure everyone's having a great time, and then you want to make sure that the audience is having a great time and that they're not upset because they're all paying money to be there. And like we did a tour a couple of years ago across Canada, 33 shows. We probably talked about that tour. And I walked away with 10% of the revenue from that tour. And it's like once you do a tour like that, you can't tour for 2 years because you've gone out and you've sort of used up any interest that there is out there. And so I can tell you this, that 10% was not enough to live on for 2 years. So it is a hard game in so many ways. And the only thing that makes it worthwhile is A, the feeling of being on stage and connecting with groups of people, and B, getting to make music as a living. Like how many people hate their jobs? Like how many people are, forced into working for a mill when they're 15 or something like that and have to do that their whole lives, even though they want to paint or whatever.
first
And
responders.
I've been given the privilege of an audience, and I've been given the privilege of getting to do this as a living. And so, as long as people will let me, I will do that.
Okay. I'm looking at some dates here. I want to get them in while I can. September 25, Calgary, McEwen, and the 26th in Edmonton, the 28th in Kelowna, Creekside. October the 1st in Victoria, just down the road at the Royal. October the 3rd, back to the Vogue in Vancouver. That's your road.
It's kind of my home court. Yeah.
And then Dan at the Danforth. I love that. It's October the 10th in Toronto and the 11th in Ottawa. And Side Door continues. Do you still have
Side Door's booming. It's busier all the time. More and more artists working on there. We changed our pricing platform, so it's just free to use now. Basically, you can connect with, artists and hosts can connect with each other. They can book shows together. They can share the revenue. We remit to SOCAN on their behalf. And if you just want to use it for ticketing, it's cheaper than Eventbrite. It's just it's a community website for ticketing and making shows happen.
I still have to ask you a couple of things. Proximity.
Mm.
Why does it affect me so much? Why does it tug at my heart? What's going on in there? It's a love
It's
song.
it's a love song. It's a lullaby. Um,
Hmm.
it is it's very direct, you know. Please don't ever die. I need proximity. I just it's a lot of my life in there, you know, like the words there are so many questions like will I ever be Joni? Will you ever be Meryl? You know, I'm a musician. Will I ever be like Joni Mitchell? My wife's an actress. You know, will she ever be like Meryl Streep? Has life got us over a barrel? You know, and then I think for me, like the apex, the climax of that song is I keep repeating the term, "What's the worst that could happen?" And I think the cool thing about what's the worst that could happen, it's kind of like the term as good as it gets. You know, it's like as good as it gets to be like, oh man, that was as good as it gets. That's amazing. It's also, is this as good as it gets? You know, like, and it's the same thing. What's the worst that could happen? You're like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, let's go, let's live, let's be. But also, guys, what's the worst thing that could happen? You know? And that double-edged sword, I feel that when I sing those words. And yeah, you know, do you know the voice that you're hearing, the female voice?
Yep.
It's the only cameo from elsewhere on vocal cameo from outside the cabin on this record. Do you know it?
No.
It's Begonia from Winnipeg.
Oh man.
I sent it to her. I was like, I don't know what. I'm hearing you on this song, and I said, just do you have any ideas? Mostly, I'm thinking about the ending here, you know. And she recorded on her laptop mic, like on the same
Of
laptop
course.
mic that I'm
Of
speaking
course.
in this Zoom with, and she just recorded with GarageBand some like really, kind of like loose ideas kind of thing. And she sent it to me and she's like, so if you like those ideas, I can go and, I'll go in, I'll hire a studio and I can record them in Winnipeg and I'll send it to you. And I said, nope, I got what I need. And so what you're hearing on the record was literally recorded through her laptop speaker. It was so great right off the top. She didn't need anything. Like she's just so unbelievably, her voice is incredible. And
Hmm.
so I just took her laptop recordings and I put them in there and we added some reverb and off to the races.
So now some of your words are coming back to me that you wrote about back and forth. Just that it's the greatest. You were one of the lines that came back was that I can remember was it's the greatest experience I've had.
Mhm.
Um, and that you carry that with you. Now, again, I come back to this day. You were writing about going in and getting the new Radiohead album. Uh,
2000.
yeah, and what it meant to you to actually have new music in your hand. Now you're in that moment. You're at that
Mm.
moment. Uh, how does it feel?
Honestly, it feels great. It's been a beautiful day. We had a release party last night. It was a beautiful night. Um, I don't get to see the band much. I live in Vancouver. They live in Toronto. We've been hanging out all week. It's been a lot of high fives this afternoon. I'm gonna go and for the first time in my life, I've been offered a Spotify billboard in Dundas Square. So
Oh,
I'm gonna go take a picture of me throwing the horns in front of that, and if the reception I've been getting um, on my phone this morning through the community text that I have, through, just DMs and seeing people posting deep cuts from the record to their stories on Instagram, everything. It's just, again, we've talked a lot about doing everything you can to not require external affirmation and to just revel in the experience of making the
of
thing.
course.
But it feels good when people pat you on the back. And it feels good to know that if I have articulated an emotion and somebody has felt that same emotion, and in hearing my articulation of it, they feel less alone. That's all I want. It's like when you remember when you're like on a field trip or something when you're a kid and there's like the one kid who doesn't have any friends and they're like kicking rocks or whatever. Like I just want that kid hugged. You know, like that's what this record should do. That's what music should do. That's what art should do. Should find the loneliest person in the room and make them feel alive. And that's all.
When you had that moment when the the powers that be in the industry were saying there's no room for you, nobody is interested, whatever. What turned that around? Was there any one moment, or what was it? What turned it
I
around?
do. I don't know. I don't know what turned it around, but I do remember the flip from going from utter despair to like, I can do this. And 2015 was the hardest year of my life in so many ways. And I don't even need to get into it, but it was just like gut punch after gut punch after gut punch over and over and over again. Um, the year just beat the crap out of me. And I remember struggling through it and struggling through it. And then January 1st, 2016, I went for a walk
Yeah.
alone, you know, and the sun was just beaming in Vancouver. It was the most glorious day. And I got a coffee and I'm walking around and the sun is in my face and I'm feeling the caffeine high. And I just remember like my shoulders relaxing and I remember thinking, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Like I can make this happen. I can turn this around. And that's when it was that year I really started writing for the record more or less. And that record started to turn it around. You know, that was the beginning of this second wing of my career. And I don't know what did it. It was the sunshine in my face. That's what it was. You know, it was the natural light.
Well, first of all, enjoy Act Two.
Thank you.
Have you thought about what Act Three is?
I don't know. Honestly, I didn't. I have one song that I've written since
Okay.
making Natural Light.
Oh,
It's been a
it's
year. I wasn't compelled to write. I felt like I had cleared my plate with this record. I presume that the muse will return, that I will start, I'll
of
write more
course.
songs, of course, but I've also started writing a little bit of a novel.
See,
And I don't know. I don't know what the next chapter is, but I am trying to approach it with the same vague target that we approached the recordings with.
have you always have seem to have cameras in proximity to you? Have you got enough material for a documentary?
Yeah, I mean, there have been a couple documentaries over the years,
Yeah.
short and long.
Yeah.
Um,
This period in
and
particular.
yeah, there's somebody who actually is coming over to do interview me later on today who has an idea and they were at the release party last night documenting that. Um, I don't know. I can't afford to ask somebody to make one. Um, and so I don't know. Like I think if something falls into place, it's going to be because of beautiful happenstance or some grant funding, thanks to the Canadian, government or something. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, at this point in day and age, like, would a documentary mean anything to people? Is there a medium for it? You know, it's like you have to, in order to make that happen, you sell it to Crave or something. And is that on the table? I don't know. I'm just not a big enough name that any of these streaming networks would care. And so I don't know.
You're going to make them care.
I can do it.
Hey,
Sun is in my face. I have caffeine in me. I can do it.
how about the state of our nation? How are you thinking about that? I watched you. I mean, I saw your post about the election
Mhm.
and getting out and voting. That's what it was about.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
you,
And not
how
voting
you
for
feeling about Canada now?
Poilievre. I feel a little bit relieved for the time being, at least. You know, Polyev, I think, is really dangerous. And I met Mark Carney, and he's a human being. I looked him in the eyes and I saw a human being. I haven't read his book, but I've heard a lot about it. And my takeaway is that he's like a compassionate economist, that he has, he cares about the little guy. He cares about the vulnerable. Strangely, like his policies are kind of what like a centrist conservative would do, so, I want to move things. I want, I want a Canada that leans into taking care of people, not because they have to, but because it's foundationally a good part of who we are.
Exactly.
it's like an ethos, you know. We've siphoned trillions and trillions of dollars out of the middle class over the last 50 years of austerity and trickle down economics. It hasn't worked. You know, a lot of people presumed it wouldn't work, and they were right. It has taken money from public infrastructure. It has made it has hurt our healthcare system. It's hurt our education system, our social infrastructure, our safety net, our roads, everything has suffered because we've basically been taking money out of the middle class and just putting it into stock buybacks and, you know, basically putting it into the hands of private wealthy people who don't need it. And they're not, the idea that they are creating more jobs is false. That's not how it works. They put it into assets. So that's why they own our homes. That's why we have to rent. That's why housing prices are crazy. And they just put it into passive income. They put it into assets that acquire more passive income with which they can acquire more assets. It's a self-exacerbating feedback cycle. So I want a Canada that taxes the mega rich, and I want a Canada that puts that money into social infrastructure so that we can be educated, so that we can be, you know, a thoughtful, reflexive country who is curious about evidence and curious about policies that are, you know, well-natured at heart and take care of people. You know, like if you go to a restaurant and you see somebody being a jerk to the server, that tells you a lot about who they are. And I worry that we take those people who are jerks to servers and we, you know, especially in the States, you put them in the highest office, you know. We tell our kids at the playground when they steal someone else's toy, don't do that, sweetie, come on, you know. And then we take the kids who steal the toys and we put them up in the Oval Office. What are we doing? What is that? You know, like all of the values that we are presumably espousing, we just give them all up and we just kowtow to, you know, authoritarian garbage. So yeah, I have high hopes for a better Canada. I think Mark Carney's a great guy. I think he can do some good. I think hopefully he can, you know, help our economy to take care of people. I don't know if it's in his plans, but I hope that it is. And I hope that we can apply the right kind of pressure because he is the kind of person who listens to reason and evidence. And he is the kind of person with the, you know, a level head on his shoulders.
Where does that show itself in natural light?
I think in the hope, you know, the honest, like if I could, I would hope that this is an honest record. It is honest about the world. It's honest about my feelings. It's honest about a lot of things, but it's also hopeful. And it's also humorous, you know, like it's really important to me writing these songs that there was humor involved. Yeah. And I've heard from a lot of people that was one of their biggest takeaways on Natural Light is like, they're kind of laughing and they're kind of crying at the same time. And that's the best feeling in the whole world. You go to a show and someone makes you laugh and then they make you cry and you just feel light. You feel like high, you know, you feel high on life. And you know, experiencing the poles in short proximity to each other.
I'm going to leave just 3 minutes to ask you one last question, but I'll say goodbye now, just so I have it for the interview. I want to thank you for this. Congratulations on your 7th album and your life.
Thank you so much, Terry. It's such a pleasure to chat with you always, and thank you for being a champion and for caring about my records through all over these years. And I don't take it for granted, and I don't take it lightly.
I care about you.
I care about you too, man.